Bruce Rowse here from the Sustainability Education Academy, and I'm really honoured today to be interviewing Peter Bregman. Now, Peter is author of the book 18 Minutes, Find Your Focus, Master Distraction, and Get the Right Things Done. And it's a book that I've just recently read, and I'm applying myself, and maybe it came to me at the right time, but I'm finding this book really, really useful. Peter heads up Bregman Partners, which provides executive coaching with clients such as Allianz, Mars, CBS, and other name brands. In lists of the top global gurus and executive coaches, Peter's listed along with people like Tony Robbins, Jay Abraham, Marshall Goldsmith. I'm going to put your book in the kind of the timeless category, in that I reckon the advice in it is just as applicable now as it will be in 100 years' time. And it addresses the question of, well, where do I focus on, and where do I best direct my energy? That's kind of like the first half of the book. I think it's a very profound question, actually. So I've got three sub questions related to this. So firstly, can you share your perspective on the question itself? Why does this question matter so much?
It matters so much, and this is the motivational part of this conversation, because we're all going to die. Like, our time is limited, and really, time is pretty much the only resource that is limited and that we can't get back. And every book that I read about time management all started with the same premise, which is, if you only follow my system or my process or my way of doing things, then you'll get everything done. And that's a myth. You're not going to ever get everything done. We're all going to die with a to-do list, hopefully. Because that means that we're engaged with life. And so, given that, it is incredibly important to be strategic and intentional about what you spend your time on and what you choose not to spend your time on. And unless we are strategic and intentional about it, it's going to be a crapshoot where, maybe we'll focus on what's important, maybe not. Maybe we get to the end of the day, and a lot of us have this experience where you've been busy all day, but you feel like you've gotten nothing important done. And so I think the question is important because, it's as important as our lives are important, right? If you feel like your life is important, then the question of how you're spending your time is equally important. If you feel like your life is not important, then you know what? Maybe probably it's not such an important question.
And I guess that then leads to my next question, which is, do you think that some people avoid asking this question? And if so, why they might be doing that?
Yeah, it's much easier not to ask the question. Like, it's much easier to answer the emails that come in than it is to think about which email do I want to send out, right? Like if you just think about that, it's so much easier to open up your email and go, oh, I've got 20 emails or 30 emails or 300 emails. And one by one, I'm going to go through them. And by the end, I'm going to feel very satisfied because I've responded to all the needs that other people have of me.
Yeah.
And that's satisfying because you're checking things off the list, but it's deeply unsatisfying because I may not even know what my needs are. And if I don't know what my needs are and I don't know what I'm after, then I can't make thoughtful choices about what to respond to and what not to respond to and what to send out. And to choose to send something out feels much riskier, is much harder, and requires more sort of thoughtfulness. It's this painful creative space of growing something without yet having direction enough to move it. And I think that's something we would all want to avoid. I want to avoid it. Like, I don't love being in this space. You have to be very, very patient. You have to be sort of intentional and aware and noticing. It's not the same as getting massive traction on something. It actually feels like you're getting no traction on it. But that's required a little bit to figure out what direction you want to get massive traction in. Like, you better know where you're running before you start running.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that as a definition of strategy. Strategy is deciding what to do. Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
and
great.
then tactics is the execution of doing that. Yeah. And so in the book, you kind of have a fantastic process for answering this question about what do you focus on and where do you best direct the energy, can you just very, very briefly summarize the steps in that process?
Well, in big picture, there's sort of three steps, which is what is my year about?
Yeah.
What is my day about? And then what is this moment about? And I think those steps are useful because we think in terms of years. We could take a different amount, but I feel like 3 years is too much and 6 months isn't interesting enough. I think more interestingly is to ask yourself, what is the most important thing for me to focus on over the next 12 months? What feels important to me this year? What is this year about for me? And I want to use my strengths and I want to actually use my weaknesses and I want to use my passions and my differences, right? That's like to me, those four things are sort of a formula for being successful, which is what am I strong at? What am I weak at? What do I love? And how am I different than other people so that I'm adding a different kind of value than other people add? Uh, and from that, I sort of just make a decision. Like I'll tell you, for me, I'm in the process of this right now. That like we're talking now in mid-January and mid-December. So in this point in mid-December, I'm thinking about what do I want? Like where am I headed? Like where am I headed with my company? Where am I headed with my work? And I'm for me, what's coming up for me is I'm very interested in being in dynamic conversations, whether I'm interviewing people, whether it's with my coaching clients, whether it's with the press, whether it's in my writing. I want to be I'm really engaged with being in intimate and dynamic conversations with people. That excites me.
Yeah.
Then the second piece is what is this day about, which we may talk more about, but it's how to structure your day so that you stay focused on those things. And then what is the moment about is really being present to, what you are doing and how to have an impact in that moment that feels nourishing and supportive of what you're trying to accomplish.
Mm. I wonder if your sales spike at this time of year, because it actually, for many people, this is the perfect time of year to be getting a copy of this book and reading it because it aligns really well with our typical annual cycle where, we spend time, we have a bit of a vacation, and we just think, and your first step is stop, stop, um, stop doing, just stop and just think a bit. So perfect, perfect.
And the one thing I will add to that is because you mentioned this woman, Beth Fletcher,
Yeah.
I would say for every turning point in my career, there was almost always a mentor that believed in me, that took me under their wing, and that um like that I was drawn to, like someone who I was really drawn to, and I go, wow, I have something to learn from this person. It's still happening to me. I probably every 7 to 10 years, I meet someone and they're doing something at a level that that I'm really drawn to and that really blows me away. And I go, wow, that's someone um, I really want to learn to. 80% of the time it's been women, which is sort of interesting. I don't know exactly what that means, but recently it's been men also where I just watch them do something at such a skilled level that is a little different than what else is going on. And I say, I've got something to learn here. And I think I am driven by learning. Like that's what I'm most excited about is what do I have new to learn? And so maybe that's why, but my career and my life has changed each time it's been touched deeply by a mentor.
Yeah. So now I kind of want to look at the role of you kind of as a guide or mentor because and I'm going to switch the conversation a bit. There's a common problem that many of us working with sustainability suffer from is that kind of we're driven by a higher purpose. And someone just wrote to me the other day, it's not a career, it's a vocation. It's like it's almost your whole life is consumed by this idea that you want to contribute to the world being more sustainable and you're really worried about things that are happening if we look at things like climate change and stuff like that. Now, whilst this can be energizing, it can be really all consuming and draining and exhausting. You feel you've made some progress and then, it just doesn't seem to get better. And
Right.
you feel kind of, you're working really hard and it's like you're continuously sprinting and you never get any closer to that finishing line. Um, And if you're an ambitious person, as many people come into sustainability are, they want to change the world.
Right.
It can actually be a profound sense of failure. Yeah. That you failed to affect change that you want to have. And I'd really like you to share your advice about this, because I think many in this sustainability profession have been in it for a while, do have this sense that we're not progressing and we're not achieving things.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, it's a really important and interesting question, Bruce. And I think there's two things to look at, right? That, one thing to look at is, what failure can teach us and how we can get better, and it's all data. I mean, I can go into all of this stuff a little more. But I'm sort of drawn in your question to ask a different, sort of ask it a slightly different look at this in a slightly different way, which is we're, you know, one of the things that enables us to be successful is to be on a wave that is moving in a direction that we need it to move in, right? Like, I've had a great career, knock on wood, and continue to have a really strong career. Coaching has become a bigger and a bigger and a bigger thing. So I was in it at the very beginning. It was like my company that designed the competencies that they use for coach assessment and certification. So, you know, like I could have decided to be a coach in an environment where everybody hated coaching and was increasingly, you know, even though it was needed in the world, like the world was kind of moving against it, and I would not have a career that I had. And in that situation, the number one most important thing is that I really love coaching. Because if I don't love coaching, then all that matters is whether I'm having the impact or not. It's like I tell people when they want to go into finance in order to make money. I say, look, if you go into work that you really, and some people really, really love finance, so this is not a knock on finance at all. But if you go into work that if you really love finance because you love finance, because you love investment banking, or because you love looking at spreadsheets and playing around with numbers and like looking at companies and figuring out which companies are going to succeed, and like that's fun, you should totally go in it. And if you make a lot of money in it, great if that's important to you. If you make no money in it, doesn't matter, because that's not the point. Like, on the other hand, if you go in only because you want to make a lot of money and then you don't make a lot of money, you've wasted your life. Right?
Yeah.
And what I would say is this is a harder question around sort of sustainability and changing the world. I personally, I'm going to say something maybe unpopular. Um, Sorry, all your people might hate me by the end of I don't know, but I'm willing to take that risk. Um, uh, I have given up on the aspiration of like changing the world to be a better place. The reason is that feels to me very grandiose. I don't I know a lot of people who started to try to change the world to make it a better place and have made it a much worse place. I don't feel like I know how to answer that question of like what we do to make the world a better place, even though I try to live my life in a way that I have a positive impact on people. Um, uh, I think we're in a wave right now that where it's like two waves. There's a wave that is pushing towards sustainability, and then there's a wave, crazy as it may sound, that's kind of pushing against it. And I don't, it can be very, very frustrating, right? To work in an environment where you feel like you want to be individually productive, and then maybe collectively all of our work is not making the inroads that we want to make. It's a very frustrating place to be. I think in that moment, again, this is a weird thing to say, but success as an individual in terms of your experience of your life and success is to do the work that you love doing, to have an impact that is meaningful to you that you think you can have with somewhat mediated expectations and um, to do the work because you know it's good work, even if it doesn't get anywhere in your lifetime. And if you tie your success or your feelings of fulfillment too tightly to what the impact actually is in the world, you're giving you're giving over your happiness and fulfillment to a little bit of a flip of a coin because you might be doing great work and it's not actually making the moves and then you end up angry and you end up frustrated and you end up head smackingly disbelieving, like how could people be so stupid and I think that's not useful.
Yeah. And in actual fact, a lot of people I think are at that point because if you look at the some of the debates now around sustainability, there's a lot of angry people there. Let me put it that way. Um,
Yeah.
so,
And
yeah,
I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's healthy for them. I don't think it's healthy for sort of the movement. I don't think it's healthy. I think what's healthy is to uh, compellingly pursue what you feel is important, letting go and wanting to make an impact, trying to make an impact in what small ways you can make an impact, letting go of the necessity for that impact to lead to, massive global change, even though our lives might be depending on it. Right? I'm asking for something very hard. I started this conversation saying I like coaching powerful people because I want to make an impact, right? And and so there's this balance of saying I'm going to do this. It may or may not make the impact. And if it makes the impact, that's great. That's what I'm going for. If it doesn't make the impact, hopefully I've enjoyed what I'm doing and I've made some kind of impact on some people, even if I haven't changed the world. And I think that leads to a satisfying life with the greatest chance of success.
what do you see as the um, skills that are typically, or the attributes that probably everyone should be cultivating to enable a career which where opportunities open up, where you can change directions, where you can transfer from one area to another. And I see a lot of people want to get into sustainability. You've provided some very healthy advice that, well, when you get into sustainability, don't, manage your ambitions. Yeah, yeah. Um, but what skills kind of underpin this? These big soft skills or hard skills. I don't know. I don't know. What are some? What are your three top skills?
And you're asking skills that underpin
And
uh,
underpin almost any career, but enable you to transfer into different areas. Yeah. Yeah.
so one of the things that I actually have felt about um, DEI and um, yeah, I've actually spoken about this a lot with people I know who are running DEI programs and friends of mine. And there's other programs that are similar, but this is a good example, which is I think, especially in this moment in time, uh, you are better served being a leader in a business with a very strong understanding of DEI and a commitment to it than to be a leader in DEI, right? And I think the same thing with sustainability, which is you may need people who are leaders in sustainability who are for whom that is their entire focus. But I think you may have a bigger impact if if you have the capability to do this, if you are a leader in a business, because those are the people who have the decision-making power and the budgets and the P&L, with a strong sensibility and care for sustainability, than if you're on the outside trying to convince someone who's not in that place to apportion their time and energy and money to sustainability. Meaning, what we need to do as what sustainability industry needs to do is infiltrate the business and to be leaders in the business, and then make business decisions that support sustainability. And that might be, and so I'm not quite answering your question, because you're saying, well, what are the skills you need? But I'm answering it in this way because then I think if my supposition is correct, if my argument is, if you buy my argument, then the question you have to ask is, what are the skills we need to lead portions of the business? Like, what do we need to do? And I think you need leadership skills. I think you need communication skills. I think you need management skills. Like there's you need the business skills. You need to understand the business. I would say the number one thing I would do if I were in sustainability and I don't really understand how business operates, I don't understand P&L and balance sheets. I don't understand, the how a business makes its money. I don't understand those things. That's the first thing that I would learn, assuming you're in sustainability in business, right? If you're in sustainability in government, then you have to understand what are the concerns of the government and what are the risks. And I would really, because even if you don't buy my argument and you stay in sustainability, understanding those things will make you far more valuable as a partner to people in the business, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of aligns with kind of a view, and I'm loving this conversation. Kind of an emerging view that I'm having looking at sustainability, and I actually haven't really thought about this until recently, which is really surprising since pretty much my whole career has been in this space. I'm really thinking about it now. But is it sustainability career? You're entering a profession which is pretty flat like a pancake. Yeah? It's a very flat profession, and there's limited opportunities for promotion because in most businesses, there's very few people actually employed in a pure
Right.
sustainability role. And then what are your choices? Well, I think you do that, or you can step out and become a consultant or set up your own business, yeah, and advise those people, yeah. And then you set up a consulting company, but then that maybe has some limited growth potential as well. Whereas, so if you're extremely ambitious about wanting to have a career where you really go up the ladder and can have influence, maybe in a very broad way, your advice is resonating with me.
Yeah, I think your observation really resonates. Your observation is really right. Take management roles in organizations, because that's the missing link to their being able to actually, instead of impact people who make decisions, be the people who make the decisions, who can then make the decisions towards sustainability, and then you're creating the change because it's your call.
Yeah, yeah, because a lot of the training I do now and all the conversations about how do you influence when you're down here, how do you influence up here? And you're just flipping that argument, say, well, stop trying to influence, try to be the person up there.
Yeah, like how do
Yeah,
you get up here? Like that's the
yeah,
question. How do you get up
yeah,
there? Yeah.
yeah. Well, Peter, thanks so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation so much. Um, so your two key books are 18 Minutes, which I personally can recommend. And then based on conversation, I've got to read that next book, which was leading
With
emotional
emotional courage, leading
with
with
emotional
emotional
courage.
courage.
Leading with emotional courage. Yeah. This has been a fantastic conversation. Thanks so much, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. I've really enjoyed it also.